So here in Ireland, coming up, we have European and local elections. The local elections are for county councillors, and the European elections are for members of the European Parliament. These elections are a week away at the time of recording. I have received, through the letterbox, a number of leaflets from some of the MEPs running in my area, which covers approximately half the geographical landmass of the Republic of Ireland. And I thought that I might go through a few of them, just to see which ones are good and which are bad. Not all of the candidates have sent leaflets yet, but I have a selection. Anyway, moving on. Margaret Maguire. Vote number 1, Ireland First. A nice colour scheme. She looks a bit like, I don't know, primary school teacher, the kind of kindly one who helps you out. It says here, Ireland First, your centre-right nationalist party. I don't think they should call themselves centre-right. It's a bit weak. Yeah, sometimes it's better not to say things. We turn the page. Very wordy. But we'll see what she says. Government has been ignoring the will of the Irish people and the rights given to us under our constitution and various treaties agreed upon through various referenda. Opt-out clause. Yeah, so this is getting into sort of the more practical things. Just shows they've been thinking about it more. And it's not so much about making radical changes as enforcing or using the powers that already exist on the books. In the same way that in America, you'll have these district attorneys who could prosecute Antifa, but they just choose not to. Ireland has lots of things they could do, but choose not to. So this first paragraph is on immigration. They're really saying about, well, they properly implement the Dublin 3 regulation. So it's enforce their 90-day freedom of movement limits. So it's kind of enforcing what's already on the books. But yeah, so they're against the immigration and they actually have a plan for what to do. Food, the fisheries and agriculture. So that's what the other people were getting at. Review participation in the climate action plan. Eliminate carbon tax. So we're seeing a bit of a thread here. This negative agenda is pretty high on the list for most of these parties except Fianna Fáil. And there's our neutrality again. Then here at the bottom, so they call themselves centre-right, but they're sort of their centre-right compared to the mainstream, which they're calling far-left. So if the mainstream were the middle, they would be the far-right, I suppose. We stand for traditional values, fewer taxes, smaller government, less restrictions, protection of private property rights, freedom of movement, religion and expression. I don't know, is that freedom of movement a nod to the COVID pandemic lockdowns and the 5-kilometre limit? I hope so, and not to mass immigration across borders. In the words of Patrick Pearse, no matter what happens or will ever happen, nothing can alter the truth of it. Ireland belongs to the Irish. So got the quote in again. So there we have it. Margaret Maguire, whom I believe is also running in the local election down wherever she lives. Next up, we have Peadar Tobin, TD, Votal Aintu. Now, Peadar Tobin says that even if he wins, he's also then going to run in the general election. So, this is kind of a stunt, I think. I don't think he's really serious about getting this job. But let's see what he has to say. First raises the collapse in Garda numbers that is now leading to the spike in crime and road deaths. Now, this spike in road deaths, basically, in the 2000s we were running 300 to 400 deaths on the road a year. And then it just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And I think we had a year recently where it was under 150, and now it's going up again. And that's this massive crisis. This was all over the RTE website in January and February. But I'm not sure that I think it's just, a natural thing. If it hits the minimum, it has to bounce back a little. And I'm not sure that the spike in crime is just due to Garda numbers. Something else has changed in Ireland these past several years. He introduced bills to have a guaranteed price for farm produce. He's on the side of farmers. A city-state while Dublin is overheating. This is basically to say that more and more people are getting sucked into Dublin, which is becoming overcrowded. And then the rural areas are losing their young people. So it's unbalancing the country. aim to seek strategic and targeted investment to rebalance our country. So they could be seeking that money from the EU, that's a problem. And it is also a problem is if, instead of having just one Dublin city down in Dublin, we end up with about 5 smaller ones scattered all over the place. Sometimes it's better to keep places like that further away. He's the founder of the Chair of the National Hospital Campaign, so he's on the side of healthcare workers. He wants to tackle housing vacancy, bring home Irish construction workers, that's good. Returning to Fine Gael MEPs here, Midlands Northwest, offers no change. Yep, that's a good point. Can't have the same people over and over. Aintu is the only party listening to the people. So in the recent referendums, that should be referenda, they were the only party to stand with the people against every other party, that's correct. They opposed the climate change bill, yep, ticks the box. Opposed censorship, yeah, they're the only other person to mention that so far. Respectful debate and common sense approach to immigration. I'm a bit sceptical of that. Common sense response, I think. A lot of people have been promising common sense and it only ever leads to more. Full public investigation into what happened to our older people in nursing homes during the COVID crisis. So that was that first COVID spike in deaths, and arguably the only excess deaths there were. There were about 1,000 deaths in a 3-month period from, I think, April, May and June, because they put people with COVID in nursing homes. And that does deserve a look, and nobody else has mentioned it, and we can't forget what was done to us. The only real opposition holding this government to account, so this is an MEP, or an election European thing, but he's talking about this government, so this is kind of a dress rehearsal for a general election, really. He's kind of getting around the rules regarding canvassing. He's sort of canvassing for his general election way ahead of